In times of ecocide and genocide, climate crisis and the rise of fascism, narratives can be pathways for systems change. The violence against the earth and its peoples is the outcome of hundreds of years of monocultures, narratives about who belongs, who decides, what has value, what counts as growth, and the endless bureaucracy of the self. These systems of meaning were imposed, and they can be dismantled. The rhizome is an underground structure connecting root to root, decentralizing knowledge, a web of life. Is the metaphor and the strategy, a global network of narrative practitioners dedicated to challenge the assumptions of capitalist modernity and cultivating new, ancient, and emerging narratives, pathways for regenerative futures. These pathways emerge from a deep questioning in a time where change is measuring metrics, likes, carbon capture, tokens of techno-optimism and market-driven solutions, while oppressive structures remain intact. True regeneration requires interwoven conditions for systems change: justice, economics, governance, land, and spirit. Change is a pathway, not an outcome. Advocating for collective ownership and stewardship of land, returning it into communities rather than leaving it in the hands of corporations and colonial logics.
What is the nature of reality if you're not at the center of it? And what kind of choices might we be making if we understand that, in fact, that is an absolute illusion?
Extremist governments from the right are also taking the power in Europe. So the funding, it seems to be reduced. Indigenous movements do not have the legal infrastructure that these big donors are requiring.
But it has to do with right relationships to the land where we live. It has to do with the communities, with connection, and the right relationship with the original inhabitants of the land where we live.
We want people who are doing justice work to think about the future of the world, the types of policies they want, the norms that they want, from the perspective of being in conversation with the river, not live on top of the river.
Narratives, stories, myths are kind of the red thread of the history of humanity. And it is by telling stories that we make sense of the world around us, our place in it, that we make sense of our relationships.
Moving away from extractive growth-centered economies toward regenerative circular models that prioritize community resilience, food sovereignty, and ecological well-being.
Gift economies are inherent to us as Africans. We had gift economies before colonization, and we thought this was a good way to get people thinking of how else could economies look like. Our project, our hack, is doing that on a bigger scale, and with the intention now of expanding the idea of freedom and expanding the idea of economies.
We're trying ultimately to change this implicit assumption of I am what I buy to I am because we are. That our wealth is in our relationships, that our wealth is in the land, our wealth is in our culture.
And we want to redefine wealth and start defining it as health, as community, as people coming together.
Shifting the dominant narrative from extractive agriculture towards regenerative, and using storytelling as a powerful tool. You cannot do the work of system change without narrative.
So it's really about connecting the grassroots on the ground, the folks working on the ground, to this broader movement to shift to a different economic system.
So I think it really is starting to create the opportunity to present alternative ways of being and ways of living and alternative economies that, become more and more viable in folks' minds and hearts the more uncomfortable things get.
The full cohort gathered in Costa Rica. 21 projects, 5 pathways, 1 week, from all corners of the world. This is where the process becomes embodied. Fellows brought their hacks, half prototyped, field tested, fragile and brave, and shared them with a room full of people who understood in their bones what it takes to work in systems change, in ourselves and in our communities. What was revealed that week was not only strategy, it is a living network, a rhizome spreading. Ecological restoration and social justice are inseparable. You cannot heal ecosystems without addressing the colonial and capitalist exploitation that damage them.
In order to empower against very different enemies, be it a state that is kind of abusing its power, being a far-right actor that is kind of coming in and kind of taking space and kind of bringing violence with its messaging, or be it a neoliberal project that's trying to impose its own hegemony. It's building also narrative infrastructure.
I see us being respected as queer indigenous people, and also walking with the memory of our Abujan, and in that way we achieve justice for ourselves and for them.
E a Guanabara, por ser lugar de encruzilhada, lugar encruzilístico desde sempre, ele também é uma nave propulsora, né, promotora de encontros pelo mundo, assim. Isso já está acontecendo aqui agora.
Que somos 18 mujeres y brigadistas que tenemos el objetivo de dar un abordaje a la problemática del fuego desde un enfoque ecotransfeminista.
De nombrar lo que existe, lo que nos da vida, con lo que nos relacionamos, de lo que comemos, que todo eso para mí es el monte, para darte cuenta que no puedes vivir sin eso.
Promoting decentralized, participatory governance structures that empower communities to manage their resources in alignment with ecological limits, organized around land, not borders.
Climate crisis is not really about carbon emissions. It's about the broken relations between humans and nature. It's about the broken relations between communities and their ecosystems, and the broken relations between our economic system and the living world.
Viene de haber enfrentándose al monte, por lo tanto todo lo que es ordenar la naturaleza, tenerlo todo cortado, y después estamos como muy huérfanos de una profundidad de conexión con la tierra, de unos rituales, de la medicina de las plantas, del honrar, ¿no?, el lugar donde vivimos.
¿Y qué significa, ¿no?, que regenerar nuestro territorio? O sea, que es un proceso estamos en un proceso de aprendizaje.
Healing our sense of belonging, our relationship to place, helping remember, that there is that, and that how that can also influence how we restore our ecosystems, especially in the backdrop of the polycrisis.
We really want to bring transition communities and change makers to the public sphere, tell the world that they exist and they've been there for so long, and that there's a lot of knowledge, tools and things to do, and the change is possible yet.
The Culture Hack method is a tool to navigate between islands of coherence, sometimes calling for data and logic, sometimes calling for creativity and spirit. With a sky full of questions in times of uncertain truth, how do we achieve justice and ontological shift together? Narratives shape what we believe is possible. They determine who gets to act and who gets to imagine. When systems collapse, the question is not only what structures to build, but how we build them, what we learn along the way, what stories emerge from those paths. Reconnecting with spiritual and cultural practices that honored Earth, challenging the disconnection and alienation that drives exploitation, and remembering what it means to belong.
Is that I do think the core sickness and what leads to this is our ontology. Like, our worldview, our way of being is separate, it's materialism, it's reductionist, it justifies extraction and commodification, and it's just life-denying.
And so Culture Hack has been incredibly supportive with helping me understand how to form narrative, how to understand audience, how to understand frames and metaphors, and also like how do you hack that system.
Tools and language again to unpack some of those things and to really imagine, like we were talking about, different ways of being, different ways of thinking.
A natural given right to decide who we are for ourselves. You can choose what to do with that, but this is a community where we can learn and share about that.
And then just coming into my own identity as I got older, as a queer and trans person, and how that managed to affect my world as well. Hopefully through reconnecting to grief, reconnecting through that embodiment in the spirit, then we can also reconnect to the larger picture bigger than ourselves. Liberation is not separate from the liberation of all beings. This is the heart of the Bodhisattva path. This is the heart of the Bodhisattva vow, so that we do that on every level that we can until all beings are free from suffering within, from suffering without, including transforming the systems of oppression as they are in this world during the polycrisis.
A network of narrative practitioners that can seed regenerative futures is HOPE. If you're a narrative practitioner, storyteller, land defender, artist, hacker, researcher, ready to challenge the dominant systems, the Rhizome is for you.
For the people, we can lose sight of it all when the darkness inside us can make us feel so small. I see your true colors shining through.
This is not a story about what's coming. It's a story about what it's already here. Together, we Rhizome.